Our next topic is treating customers fairly, and which is popularly known as TCF. The presenter of this topic, I know some of you may be thinking that I'm the presenter. No, I'm not the presenter. I'm here to present the presenter. My name is Jess Kangara. So I'm going to present to you the person who is going to present this topic, and he's an actuary with working experience in medical aid, long-term insurance, pension funds, institutional investments, and social security. He works independently, consulting in a number of these areas and across many different types of clients, among them regional governments, insurers, pension funds, transitional organizations like the World Bank and OECD, an African with a Latin American and European parents, he brings fresh perspective to the issues that he challenges. He and his wife, they have 5 children and are based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I know most of the times someone who's biographer doesn't talk anything to their presentation or what they will say, but I believe on this one you hear for yourself what he's going to deliver to us. From just interacting with him, there's one thing that I picked which was of interest to me, and I know I didn't tell him that I was going to tell you, but I have to share with you. He told me that he enjoys open water swimming, which is swimming in oceans, and and the experience that he told me, the distance that he swam so far, I was so amused. And I know you agree with me that this is a life of actuaries who are risk managers, taking such a risk, swimming where there are sharks. And I don't know whether you won't be afraid of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome on the stage Rob Rusconi.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Yes, I mean it's not very consistent with risk management, but it is consistent with the reputation of actuaries to seek solitude and avoid people. It's not a very social venture. Jessica's let a few cats out of the bag. Firstly, let me say that I'm deeply honored to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me to share with you. I'm astonished by the numbers of you, and I'm very impressed with the quality of the questions. And with that in mind, I have a simple strategy. I'm going to talk on and on and on until the last minute, so there's no time for questions. Because the other thing you now know is that I have worked in other areas. I served on the Council for Medical Schemes. Most recently, I looked after a small insurer. The thing about a small insurer is there are not many of you, and when SAM and TCF comes along, you have to do it all. But I do ask that you limit your questions to this subject, because you could certainly lead me down rabbit trails in some of the other areas. It's a great pleasure to be here. I've been asked to speak about TCF and to provide some thoughts on its implications for disclosure. I'm very pleased with the narrowing of the focus, because TCF is a very broad subject. So I will look at disclosure, but at the risk of repeating myself, let me just tell you for the first time, and I will tell you many times during this presentation, it is a game changer. You need to think of TCF not as a piece of legislation, but as a game changer. You need to think of it like a soccer player who's been taken to a meeting and who thinks what they're going to give him is the latest rule, maybe a subtlety, an offside or something like that, and being told, from now on you're going to play with a rugby ball. It's a game changer. It is a complete game changer. So let me jump right in. I'm going to talk to you about the need for TCF, the fundamentals of the TCF regime. I use the word regime not with a political slant, but because it is a big deal. It is not the TCF law, the TCF even thinking, it's a whole way of thinking. And at the same time, I will comment on the breadth of its impact and the potential for change. It is not just something that insurers think about, as perhaps SAM. It is not just something that pension funds think about. It is very, very broad, and I'll illustrate that to you. And then, assuming that I'm not carted off the stage because I've run out of time, I will look at some of the impacts on disclosure. But they won't surprise you once we've considered some of the significance of TCF. So let's start with the need. Well, TCF is a regulatory philosophy. A completely different way of thinking. Why did we need it? Well, the mindset of the supervisor has been historically prudent. Across the world, generally, in the 30s and 40s and 50s, even the 80s and the 90s, the supervisors were happy if the entities were solvent. And that's what they looked at. And so actuaries had work primarily to confirm that the insurer was solvent, that the pension fund was solvent, that the social security system was solvent, and that was the impact. And yes, in a way that grew up in a world of trust me, I'm a doctor, or trust me, I'm a lawyer, or maybe even trust me, I'm an actuary. If the solvency was there, then the product was probably okay. And there's been a growing realization that that's perhaps not appropriate. And perhaps that a supervisor needs to do more than just make sure that the customer won't lose their money to insolvency. The supervisor wants to make sure that the customer also doesn't lose money due to unscrupulous behavior, that retains solvency but is still unscrupulous. The supervisors had very limited capacity for market conduct supervision. So what would tend to happen is there would be a big blow-up, there'd be a lot of publicity, and the supervisory authority would say, well, what do we do now? Because there wasn't somebody or a unit or a department who was always looking out for that. And so it would be a great debacle. And it wasn't quite clear. The question to ask were, often, how did this happen? How did this happen? Well, it's not difficult to work out how something like that happened. The question you needed to ask about is, how could we have prevented it happening? And so typically, the supervisor would recognize that it didn't have the skills to do so. I'm referring to South Africa, but South Africa inherited a great deal from broadly speaking, its Anglo-Saxon regulatory mindset. So the same sort of realization dawned in the United Kingdom, in Australia, and the United States, that in fact they needed to do more to look after the customer, and not just by making sure that the bank or the insurer were solvent. And then there was growing evidence, plenty of it perhaps, that it was needed. So there were signs of failure. I really could run a 3-day workshop on the signs of failure alone. But just to pick up on a few examples, there were signs of failure to those that were prepared to look at failure. So would it be regarded as a market failure that in South African pension funds, 97 or 98% of the assets were in active management? Would that be regarded as a sign of failure? Well, in some ways it in fact would be a market failure. It's a sign of inequity. It's a sign of information mismatch between the supply side and the demand side. The supply side just pushes the answer that you need to be in active management, and the demand side just swallows that answer, paying an additional 1 to 1.5% a year in fees, when we all know that the aggregate results of active management before fees is in fact exactly the same as index-linked investment. So that's a sign of failure. Now what we need to do is we need to be brave and say we need to look a little bit deeper than for the pension fund disaster. We need to look at the signs that the market is not working well. And we need to say, well, what do we do to make the market work better? And that's exactly the question that TCF seeks to answer. Conflicts of interest in distribution. I have to say, in many instances involving actuaries, conflicts of interest were not addressed. In the insurance arrangement, fees on long-term saving. I did a study in, I think it's 2004. What amazed me, I never did the study expecting to see the results that came out, which was that, if you'll excuse my technical language, that insurers were ripping off the customers. I think you understood that. What amazed me was partly that the numbers were so high, but what really amazed me is that everybody was surprised. Nobody knew. Nobody knew, not the insurers, not the actuaries at the insurers, not the intermediaries, not the customers themselves, not the regulator. nobody knew that after a lifetime of disciplined saving by an individual from 25 to 65 in a typical insurance provided product, the cake which they would have received if there had been no charges had been reduced by between 35 and 48%. Nobody knew it. That means they weren't sufficiently interested in the customer to make that sort of measurement. Annuity provision at retirement is biased by the incentives provided to the intermediaries. So it is fairly well known to us that one of the most difficult risks to self-insure is the risk of a long life, because if the event occurs, it's too late. You can't self-insure. You can self-insure your car if you have the assets. You can self-insure your house. You can even self-insure your life by saving enough for your dependents. But you can't self-insure the risk of an unexpectedly long life, but people do. And why? Because the commission incentives drive people into the so-called living annuities. Risk products with high premium increases, a lot of price pressure on the simple risk products. Buy R1 million cover, ours costs 105 Rand and 60 cents, where theirs costs 108 Rand. I'm pulling numbers out of the air. We all know that you can't just print money. We all know that when you push down at one end, you have to push up somewhere else. The customer typically doesn't know. The typical risk product in South Africa is priced in such a way that the customer will have to lapse it, because the increases are just absurd in order to compete at the entry level. Credit life insurance, unsustainably high prices and high profit margins, and very poor understanding about customers. There was an interesting piece of research that showed that when customers were surveyed, around about 0.5% of them said that they had life insurance on their loans. A separate assessment of the proportion of them who really did have life insurance on their loans was that it was about 20 times that. Now, you cannot tell me, provider, that you're doing a good service to your customer if they don't even know that they have your products. You can tell me, though, that it's an enormous opportunity to make a lot of money if your customer doesn't know that they have a product, and that's essentially what was happening. I'm just scratching the surface. I serve on a committee. Every actuary has to serve on a committee. It makes them even more boring. So I serve on a committee, the Actuarial Society Treating Customers Fairly Committee. We put together a paper. The hard part of this paper, it's on the Actuarial Society of South Africa website, last year's convention. The hard part of this paper was knowing where to stop. Over 5 different areas in which actuaries work, I discussed serious concerns about the actuarial contribution to, again, excuse the technical language, screwing the customer. So it was hard to know when to stop. And the paper had criticism. By the way, it didn't have enough public criticism. I heard it by the by, that it was unrealistic and that you didn't know what you were talking about. But I think we were just making the point that there's plenty for us to be thinking about here. So, I like to come to my fire alarm moment. My fire alarm moment is that moment in a presentation at which, if there were then a fire alarm and people had to run out screaming, at least they got something valuable. Okay? So here's the value in this presentation. It's in that word over there. It's in that word over there. Here is what it is technically about, but here's the scary part. Okay, so TCF is structured around 6 outcomes, and I'm going to spend some time on the next slide, at which the people at the back are going to regret sitting at the back, because I confess I think the text is a bit small. That slide's going to give you kind of the detail, but this slide is the key. This is the fire alarm slide. If you are providing a financial product or service to a customer, you must demonstrate that you are meeting 6 outcomes. You must demonstrate that you're meeting 6 outcomes. Now, this essentially is why it's a philosophy, and this essentially is why it's so difficult. Not not only have the regulators said, we are going to redesign supervision around the customer, but they've also said, we're not going to tell you what the rules are. You are going to prove to us that you have achieved those outcomes. We're not even going to tell you how to do it. Look, we reserve the right to write rules. We can tell you how we think you might want to do it, but you're going to have to prove it to us. And it gets worse if you're a supervised entity. The benefit to the regulator of not specifying the rules is that they create competition around the customer. The right sort of competition. Why? Because year one passes and everybody scrambles to demonstrate. Okay, and some guys get slapped on the wrist. Admittedly, it's going to be a bit more difficult to know, if there are no rules, when to slap somebody on the wrist, because it's not that there's a cross in this checkbox, it's that they haven't demonstrated it. Okay. But year one passes, and at the beginning of the year two, the supervisor says, what was the best thing we got out there? What was the coolest, most customer-centric idea we got out of this? And somebody says, I think it was this. Hey, these guys went, they went more than just the extra mile. They did this to take care of their customers. There's nothing stopping the supervisor from saying, we just want to help you. We want to help you to understand what we think treating customers fairly means. We think it could mean this. You know what you've done? You've created competition, the right sort of competition, favorable competition for customers. And then everybody else has to scramble to deliver this exceptional customer centricity, not because they've created a rule, but because they've created a benchmark. And they've said, you're going to have to explain to us why you don't think that's suitable to your customers. And so it really has the potential to change the game. It makes a lot of lawyers very nervous because what happened to the law? And it makes a lot of actuaries very nervous because, well, what about their limited responsibilities? They're not limited anymore. So here's how, not this. I'm about to tell you how it was expressed, not as a blank. Maybe this is useful actually. It is a bit of a blank slate. You tell us how you're going to do it. All right, so I will read it all to you for those of you finding it a little bit small. Here is the ultimate desired outcome. The ultimate desired outcome. Remember the previous desired outcome was something like this. We protect customers by making sure that financial services companies don't go out of business. Here's the new ultimate desired outcome. Customer financial services needs are appropriately met through a sustainable industry. That is profound. Our job now is to make sure that customer financial services needs are appropriately met. Their needs are met. Their needs are met. That's what financial services should have been doing forever and a day and hasn't been. Their needs are met. So, we're going to do this through 3 intermediate outcomes. Number 1, improved customer confidence. Pause. What? You're telling me that customer needs must not only be met, but customers must believe that their needs are being met? Yes. Yes. Sorry, insurer, are you not doing that now? Are you not confirming that your customers believe that their needs are being met? But they are, they don't complain. Are they convinced that their needs are being met? You'll find that in one of the outcomes, actually. Secondly, that appropriate products and services are provided. Appropriate products and services. And thirdly, that industry transparency and discipline is upheld. And then these 3 intermediate outcomes flow naturally through into the 6 outcomes that will need to be demonstrated. So here are the 6 outcomes. And I'll give you a little hint, since we're talking about disclosure. Look out for outcome number 3. Okay, that's the one that most obviously talks about disclosure. But I'm going to give you another hint. Just about all of the outcomes have an impact on disclosure. This table, if you're taking notes, you'll find this table is actually in the paper that I referred to. If you Google Actuarial Society and you look for last year's convention, you'll find that paper, and this table is there. Okay, so let's look at what outcomes might lead to the outcome that customer confidence is improved? Well, and I think again about the previous slide, demonstrate that the outcome is met. And what I'm going to do is, we're going to focus a little bit on this one. I'm going to ask you a few questions. You're now a director of an insurer, got a nice corner office, and your day is suddenly spoilt by this. That the regulator puts a little piece of paper under your door and says, new job, demonstrate that your customers are confident that they are dealing with a firm where the fair treatment of customers is central to the firm's culture. Okay, let's just paraphrase that. Your customers believe that everything that you do is focused on them, your customers. I mean, that has some implications, by the way. Let's say that you're producing cold drink and you needed to demonstrate that is true. What might your customer ask of you to demonstrate that that is true? Might your customer say to you, do you know what? After production and distribution, this should cost me $7, let's call it $1, and you are charging me $1.50. I want you to charge me $1. You have no good reason for charging $1.50 except some esoteric arguments about, well, I need the profit in order to expand the business and all that sort of thing. What has that got to do with delivering me my cool drink? Tell you what, cut you a deal. We'll make it $1.05. That 5 cents is enough for you to sustain your business. Your customer has a point. Now, in markets for bottled water, your customers can just ditch your water and go to the next bottle. In markets for financial services, you have an enormous advantage that your customer doesn't truly know whether your product delivers what it says it's going to deliver. What we are saying now as a regulator is no longer may you exploit that information inequity. No longer can you do so. All right, excuse the numbers, but this is just how they're arranged. Number 5 is that customers are provided with products that perform as firms had led them to expect, and that the associated service is both of an acceptable standard and what they had been led to expect. Think of the disclosure implications here. Not customers are provided with a product that does a good job. No, that's not good enough. The job that the product does is in line with what you told the customer that job would be. And don't tell me you'd have no responsibility for what your intermediary says to the customer. That, I'm afraid, is your problem. Because the customer believes that the product will do this, that it will pay them when they stub their toe. Because somebody told them that it would, and it doesn't. You don't make it on that point, because the product does not do what the customer expected the product to do. Right, let's look at appropriate products and services. Products and services marketed and sold in the retail market are designed to meet the needs of identified customer groups and are targeted accordingly. Pause for thought. Pause for thought. Do not, this says, do not load your firearm with as much ammunition as you can. Turn on your revolving platform and fire away. You may not do that. You now need to distribute your products with the precision of a sniper. Yes, it's a slightly interesting analogy, isn't it? Because still too many product providers think like that. But you must identify the customer group. You must know, as close as you can know, that the product that you have in mind for them meets their need, and your distribution channels must focus on that customer group. And we can't have collateral damage, hey? You must meet that group. Oh, no, but the fact that I sold 1,000 to that group and 10,000 to others, that maybe they could benefit from the product, I'm afraid that doesn't cover that point, that outcome is not met. Outcome 4, where customers receive advice, the advice is suitable and takes account of their circumstances. And you can't outsource your problem. You can't say it's the distribution channel's fault that the advice was poor. You need to make sure that the distribution channel does a good job. You can't outsource that problem. What about our industry transparency and discipline? Well, outcome 3 says that customers are given clear information and are kept appropriately informed before, during, and after the time of contracting. That's quite clear, isn't it? Well, again, a little bit of thought will show that that is not easily achieved. And number 6, customers do not face unreasonable post-sale barriers to change product, switch provider, submit a claim, or make a complaint. Until that one came up, you were all thinking, no, we're fine. Oopsie, oopsie. Actually, it is never difficult for the customer to make a change, to submit a claim. Never unreasonable. Pretty tricky. That's pretty tricky. But again, I come back to that point that the word demonstrate is key. This is the easiest regulation you've ever seen. There it is. There it is. Your regulatory authority could say, I'm going to write you some rules that are on a single sheet. Go away, do it. Tell you what, I'll be kind, you've got 6 months to get yourself in order because this is going to be difficult to do. And the simple rule is that one in the bottom right-hand corner, we're going to assess that customer financial services needs are appropriately met through a sustainable industry. All you have to do, insurer, bank, pension fund, short-term insurer, intermediary organization, is prove that you have met this outcome. That's all you're going to have to do. You better start scratching your head. Okay, so I've now put it in red in an effort to kind of get that through. But let me now give you a sense of how it might work in practice. This is an extract from a report from the Financial Services Board. The report followed a self-evaluation. Why on earth would the regulator allow a self-evaluation? I agree, they're being a little bit soft. But what they're doing is they're giving a sense to the industry of what may be coming. Okay, so what they did is they issued a 120 questionnaire, and they said, you have a look at it. And then 6 months later they said, can you tell us, this is now not law, can you tell us what your assessment was? Can we just get a sense of how ready you thought you were across those 6 outcomes? The reason I put this here is to give you a sense of some of the sub-areas that insurers needed to think about. And I'll come back to that point, insurers needed to think about under some of the outcomes. So outcome 1, I'm sure some of you have forgotten it. Customers are confident that they're dealing with firms where the fair treatment of customers is central to the firm's culture. Might need a lot of change in your organization. It might need you to make sure that your strategy is right, that governance controls are in place, that your decision making is good, that you show leadership on this, that you gather appropriate management information, that your performance management criteria are right, and that you reward your staff accordingly. No? Not convinced? Okay, I'll show you some of the questions that they asked. But before I get to that, I want to give you a sense of the spread. I said insurers and I said others. Well, actually, it's everybody. Long-term insurers, short-term insurers, a whole lot of categories of intermediaries, not just retirement fund trustees, but the administrators as well. And this little word that you can't read here is one of the most profound on that slide, the word banks. Because banks have thought, you guys, you insurers, you think you've got it tough. You're a little namby-pamby non-bank regulated. We are regulated by the central bank. And they're right. Prudential regulation by the central bank is a big deal. A big deal. I speak to people who ran banks, who they look after insurers, and they're like, please, you want to be on the banking side. And then suddenly they go, hang on a minute, this treating customers fairly applies to us as well. We need to demonstrate that we treat our customers fairly. It's pretty tough because in the corridors we have to admit that our charging structures are designed to confuse. The reason that the customer doesn't know that we're more expensive than the next one is because we do this and this and this instead. That's the reality, and banks are now in the scope. Why am I showing you that? The FSB could take a few tips on logical colouring, but this is just the feedback that was given by each of the entities. Purple is good, then blue, then green, then yellow and white, and then into the orange, red and black. And they were admitting that actually it's in this fundamental area of culture and measurement that they're finding it hardest. And this was a self-assessment. Most of them were being a little bit kind on themselves. So most of the insurers had to be dragged kicking and screaming. Because before this, when the regulator said, so how would you demonstrate to me that your customers are happy? The insurers would say things like, because they don't complain. Okay, we can all see the hole in that. The reason I don't complain when a product doesn't deliver is usually because it's too complicated for me to understand that it didn't deliver. But there's no way, if the insurer came to me and said, are you confident that everything I do is geared to your ends? There's no way I'd go, yeah. Okay, so that's pretty tricky. Let's just think a little bit about that. How would you demonstrate that? Well, you have to, this is a radical thought, I know. You have to talk to your customers. Not only do you have to talk to your customers, but you have to talk to them in a way that doesn't like pressure them into giving you the answer. You're happy with our service, right? Right? That sounds very funny, but most financial services do that. They actually go, please indicate if you have any complaints. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. All right? So, how do you demonstrate that? You have to talk to your customers. This is a room full of actuaries. You can't cherry pick the customers you talk to. It needs to be an unbiased survey. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Okay, you can't lead them. You need to demonstrate that you've really got a sense of what they're saying. Before you carry out that survey, you better have a very good idea of what you're going to do if your customers actually indicate, surprise, surprise, that they don't believe that your culture is completely geared towards them. So you need to demonstrate to the regulator that you've already thought of what you would do, how you would change everything in your organization to focus on the customer. Nikki, am I running out of time? Not yet. 5 minutes. Okay, my strategy of no questions. 5 and 5. All right. So here are a few of the questions. Okay. So let's just think back to your corner office. You just got your promotion. You're the big boss of this organization. The little slip of paper comes out, and you go, well, how am I going to prove that? And another slip of paper comes in. It says, well, just meet all of these 120 requirements. Here are a few of them. Tell me that a process is in place for assessing staff and management understanding of TCF and the organization's TCF commitments. If you don't have that, and you don't have a very good reason for not doing that, you're not demonstrating TCF. Okay, so actually the regulator's being quite helpful here. They're not merely saying, okay, blank sheet, prove it. They say, good news, we'll give you 120 hints. You better be able to do all of these pretty well. You ought to be able to show that the delivery of the TCF outcomes is a feature of the firm's stated values, code of conduct, or ethics policy. Because if it isn't, why isn't it? You better be able to show that processes are in place for formally and regularly reporting organization-wide progress in achieving TCF deliverables to the board and senior management. Why? Because the board, together with senior management, will be held accountable for this. Okay, so you better have that information in place. You need to be able to show that there's ongoing evaluation of whether the firm's governance framework as a whole has been effective in achieving TCF outcomes. Food for thought. You need to be able to show that performance evaluation criteria incorporate TCF objectives and are rigorously applied at all levels. Performance evaluation criteria. Performance evaluation criteria. How do you reward your sales staff? Rob, for selling. That's not customer centric. You are going to need to be able to show that you have thought about how you reward your sales staff for driving a culture of customer centricity, notwithstanding the fact that they still have to sell products. Actually, in the long run, it's good for you to do that because you improve the quality of your sales, your lapse rates fall through the floor, your customers run rallies saying, we love this company. Your customers start selling your products themselves. So the good news is that this is a good thing for you to do. The bad news is, in South Africa, you're being told to do it. We make information regarding our progress in achieving TCF outcomes publicly available. On our website, it says, we have these measures and we have achieved exactly this, and we failed in this one, and this is what we're doing to address that imbalance. Signed by the chairman of the board of directors. Okay, so let's look at disclosure. The burden of proof on the provider is considerable. Disclosure must be demonstrably clear. Excuse the repetition. Demonstrably. Now, my disclosure is good. So about 10 years ago, no, it's probably more like 7 or 8. I love mystery shopping. We did a mystery shopping exercise. I do some work in microinsurance. And we did a mystery shopping exercise looking at the effectiveness of the products in South Africa that are sold to low-income individuals, and we looked at endowments. And I was told that disclosure was excellent. I was told that disclosure was excellent because the charge disclosure was consistent with the requirements of the Life Officers Association. If any of you are nervous, create an association and then hide behind it. Now, by that time, I'd done quite a lot of research and analysing charges. So, not to put too fine a point on it, I ought to have been able to understand the charges. I hadn't a clue. In some cases, what I had to do was rebuild the policy in an effort to try and match what I thought were the charges to the projected maturity value. I couldn't work out what was a charge and what was a disclosure. I couldn't work out whether the fact that we pay commission is in the charges or we're going to charge you separately for that. And this is an environment where every insurer said our disclosure is perfect. Why? Because it meets the rules. Had one of them gone to their customers to determine whether the customers understood it. Yeah, they probably had. They just hadn't asked me. No, again, with respect. I ought to have been able to understand it. These are products being sold to low-income customers. By the way, the charges were unbelievable. 5 to 10% of assets a year. But you had to work it out with actuarial mathematics. There is no way that the insurers could demonstrate that their disclosure was clear or that it met customer needs, because there is no way that they even asked their customers. This is the implication for disclosure. This is the implication for disclosure. If your disclosure is not understood by your customer, close your doors. You don't deserve to be in business. So here are some of the questions around disclosure. Sorry, some of the, that 120 questions, these are the things that you'll all be able to say very easily because you're all great at disclosure. We regularly review standardized product information we use, whether produced by us or not, to ensure that it remains accurate, clear, and appropriate to the applicable customer groups. Accurate, clear, and appropriate to the applicable customer groups. Thank you. You have a problem, by the way. Evidence in the UK demonstrated that a high proportion of people do not understand a percent. But it needs to be clear and appropriate to your customer groups. We have a process in place to ensure that any information we provide regarding another party's products or services, party's products or services, is accurate, clear, fair, and not misleading. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to read all of this to you. You're getting a sense of it. We test the product information for its clarity with the target audience before issuing it, and we control the accuracy and quality of any once-off or non-standard product information. Any once-off or non-standard product information provided by staff. Customer phones, staff gives a technical answer. Did you check that answer? Or representatives. It's all change. It's all change. TCF is going to have dramatic implications for our environment in South Africa. And I think the opportunity for you to think about whether you really are meeting customer needs is golden. The fact that it's not a requirement yet, and that you can learn so much from the Australians, the South Africans, others as well, is there for you to take. Madam Chair, do we have time for one or two questions?
Oh, thank you, Rob. We'll now open the floor for questions. Maybe 2-3 questions.
Hi, thanks for the really good talk. My question is going to be straight to the point. At what stage is the line going to be drawn with regards to what you disclose to the client? Because at some point you're going to start disclosing assumptions, for example, and things like discrimination start coming up. So you genuinely have, say, a target market where AIDS is a real issue, but yeah, you just have to disclose why it's.
I know why my instinct was that I didn't want any questions. But let's have all the questions so that I can think hard about this one.
Thank you. My question is around barriers to changing providers. Let's say, for example, there is company A, they have a higher overhead structure than company B. Can they say that we have a higher surrender value because our cost structure is a bit heavy? So in a sense, there is no barrier to entry.
Then one last question.
You can tell why I carried on talking.
Thank you, Rob. I have a question and a comment. I was just wondering how TCF would relate to smooth bonus products, given the levels of discretion that are allowed in the continuous pricing of such. And my comment is that I think there's a big fuss about TCF. Customers will vote with their feet when they don't have it.
Right, thank you very much for those questions. Let's start right at the end. The problem is, in fact, this is the nice thing if you're a financial services provider, in 95% of instances, your customers don't vote because they don't know. They don't know how much profit you're making. They don't know what your charges are. South Africa did not know that their diligent saving in a retirement annuity provided by a good insurance company lost them so much of their value. They didn't know that. By the way, coming to the surrender, they couldn't leave. They couldn't leave because the products were inflexible. The surrender penalties, the charges were extraordinary. So kind of answering those two questions at the same time. One of the problems that this creates is that it kind of lets out the tide. And it leaves a lot of people kind of feeling a bit funny because their legacy products were terrible. That doesn't mean that they were bad. So I think there's an important place for smooth bonus, but you better quickly explain it very carefully. I mean, it provides a wonderful smoothing. It provides, in technical terms, it provides access to a balanced portfolio without the risks. If your shareholder's taking a nice charge for that, then you better explain that to your customer very carefully, because in fact that charge normally more than compensates the insurer and undercompensates the customer for that risk that they're being saved. So you've got a problem. But there is a space for every product. The legacy remains a problem, and the possibility of changing providers remains an issue. The industry in South Africa has the opportunity to reinvent itself, and there is a window of opportunity for new companies who don't have legacy to design their products entirely around the customer. And the older companies must think carefully about the opportunities that are presented and the messaging that they give to customers about products that maybe in the new light of day they feel quite uncomfortable. And that kind of comes to the point of the line. Insurers have to, number one, think very carefully about these, and number two, think about how they're going to communicate them. So I mean, we touched briefly on it. One of the essential differences between the medical aid and the insurance product is the right to underwrite. And that's another reason why the medical aid tends to be under the Ministry of Health and the insurance product under the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance is happy to say you may underwrite. What does that mean? Discriminate. Okay. So we've had a few discussions in South Africa about the right to underwrite, which, to put it slightly more bluntly, is the right to discriminate. And it's something that if you believe, you're going to need to defend hard. Okay? But you may express that to your customer. Don't hide it though. Don't hide it. So there are now products available in South Africa expressly for HIV positive individuals who understand, if you explain it clearly to them, that their mortality risks are higher. But the price of those products has come down rapidly as actuaries have understood that those risks, well controlled, are actually not the risks that they thought they were. If you got in early and your price is now falling, you're onto a good thing. If you never got in at all, you can't get in now. So it really is about honesty, and you can only be honest when you've really thought about these issues yourself. I think it is a little bit like the tide going out, and everybody being exposed for what they really are, and for customers indeed being able to vote with their feet because of that improved transparency. We could go on for a very long time. I'm very grateful for your time and for your questions. I think I need to hand over. Thank you very much.
Allow me to thank Rob for the great presentation. I think at this point you agree with me on the introductory comments that I made. Those who were not here, you wonder what I said when I introduced him. But those who were here on time, they know what I said and they'll link it to what he presented. The reason why I'm saying so is because of three main reasons. One, the level of questions that we asked after the presentation. Two, there's no single person who went out during the presentation. Three, I expected 5 people to sleep, but then only one person was sleeping. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate we've got a small token of appreciation for you.